Welcome to Concordium's Genesis. Thank you for joining us. My name is Claire Ross-Brown, and I will be your moderator on this special day, which marks the beginning of an era of next-generation blockchain technology that serves the business's needs. Joining me virtually, we have Mr. Lars Seier Christensen, Concordium's founder and Concordium's Foundation's chairman, Ms. Lone Funz Schroeder, Concordium's CEO, Mr. Jørn Howland, Concordium's Chief Financial Officer, PhD Torben Pryds Petersen, Concordium's Chief Technology Officer, and PhD Benny Isenberg, Concordium's Chief Marketing Officer, and Mr. Michael Jackson, former Chief Operations Officer at Skype and Concordium's advisor. 3 years ago, Lars had the vision of bringing the promises of the blockchain technology to the enterprise world, knowing that most businesses cannot operate on the basis of anonymity. He brought together an all-stars team of renowned cryptographers, business leaders, and developers to build a next-gen blockchain that could solve the shortcomings of the traditional blockchains by introducing an ID layer at the protocol level. Now, after the foundation of a strong research center that has contributed to the field more than 40 peer-reviewed papers, 4 successful testnets, several successful private sales and partnerships, Concordium is ready to release on this day not only its mainnet, but its first MVP. Accompany us for the next hour on a presentation on Concordium's vision and Concordium's journey from science to business. You will also get an overview of Concordium's tokenomics, learn how to get started with Concordium, and make your first GTU transactions. Learn what is in the box of this launch and our future plans. Now, without further ado, Lars, you started this journey. What does this mean for Concordium?
Well, thanks very much, Claire. And of course, this is a very important day, not just for me, but for everybody in the Concordium project. We have been working with this project since late 2017, so more than 3 years today. And there's, of course, been a lot of milestones along the way, but ultimately launching the mainnet has got to be one of the most important moments in any blockchain's life. So without question, this is a very important day for us all, and we're very happy to be here and share it with all the viewers. So I'd also like to say welcome to everybody watching. Now, when I look back at the history of this project, I have to actually look a little bit before that, because my earlier main claim to fame was founding and running Saxo Bank for a number of years, and we were big currency traders in sort of traditional fiat currencies. And of course, when these cryptocurrency space began to develop, Bitcoin began to get some attention. That caught my interest relatively early on, I would say, and I got fascinated by it already around 2012, 2013, and was, I think, one of the earliest people in banking to sort of become preachers and ambassadors for the potential of Bitcoin. After that, of course, we had further developments in the space, most notably Ethereum, that came a couple of years later, and I think was also something that one would expect that there would be a building on top of the Bitcoin functionality, and that Bitcoin was not the beginning and end of it all. So for sure, Ethereum added to the excitement, also, of course, to the universe that was available for traders and for people to follow, and with different functionality. So I got more and more excited about the promise of not just the cryptocurrency aspect, but the blockchain aspect, the smart contracts, etc. And it reminded me a lot of my early days, actually, when we were just starting up Saxo Bank, which was at a similar time, I would say, in the internet development. You know, in the mid-90s, the internet was a promise that hadn't yet fully delivered, but it was very clear that it gave some advantages to people that knew how to work with it, and that there would be many businesses built on this in the future. Difficult to predict exactly what businesses would succeed, but we were early adopters there as well, and built our first trading platform at a time when probably there was no more than maybe 25 million users globally on the internet. So I saw some of the same potential, and I remain thinking that probably the blockchain space and the whole industry here is the second big opportunity I see in my life. And there's been a generation since the last one, so it's very exciting to also be part of the next big thing, which I truly believe that blockchain will be. However, at the same time, I also became a little bit skeptical of the early generations. Clearly, they come from partially an ideological view, from an anarchistic, ultra-liberalist view, and to be honest, that kind of appeals to me because I also believe in freedom and in self-sovereignty, but at the same time, I also got somewhat concerned about the non-compliance with the normal rules of society. The energy use seems to be a bigger and bigger issue, and also many of the inefficiency in terms of scaling. And for me, it was quite clear that while I'm absolutely sure that Bitcoin has a very interesting place going forward, predominantly as a store of value, and Ethereum, of course, has gained the biggest ecosystem at this point. So there's for sure a place for these projects, but they also suffer with a number of issues regarding to scalability, to compliance, to energy consumption, etc. So at some point, it dawned on me that it would be interesting to start a new project, combining the very best things of the true DNA of permissionless blockchains, which in my view is that we don't have these single points of failure that we know from the financial sector and anywhere else really. We have a great opportunity to create unlimited trust and automated trust via the use of smart contracts. We have a possibility to reach out into corners of the world that cannot be done with the current infrastructure. But at the same time, there's also a very real reason why we have some of the requirements from let's say, the old world in terms of compliance, in terms of regulation, to protect against abuses, to protect against money laundering, terror financing, etc. So the idea of matching the two to take all the best from the distributed permissionless blockchain and make it usable also in the real world, if you will, I thought was a very big opportunity, and that led to the start of Concordium. Now, as I went into this, although I followed the space for some years, as I spoke about, I had to really start this project from scratch and my own understanding of it as well. Now, I had the experience of having co-founded Saxo Bank and building that business, so I wasn't too daunted by the task, but for sure, a lot of thinking had to go into how do we build such a blockchain. And for me, the key thing there was to build it on the absolutely most rock solid science that I could find. And I'm very happy to say that actually I found some of the best cryptographers in the world here in my own home country, Denmark, which has a university called Aarhus University, which has consistently for the last 40, the last 20, the last 3 years been at the very top of rankings for cryptography, and we have engaged in a very, very fruitful cooperation with not just that university, but also the Technical University of Zurich and several other places where we draw specific competences from. After having defined that, it came to building a top tech team, which today is led by Torben Petersen of the Petersen Commitment, just as some of the cryptographers involved, particularly Professor Ivan Damgaard, is also one of the grand old men of cryptography and created, for example, the Merkle-Damgaard construction, which in essence is a hash function or the beginning of the hash functions that today are absolutely essential in blockchain. So a really strong team on the business side was also added after that. So the best science, a very strong tech development, a more traditional tech development than many projects in this area, but with a lot of focus on actually converting the science into rock solid technology. And ultimately building a business team on top that can help this this blockchain gain acceptance and help explain it to the world at large, and not least the real business out there that I think have to some extent shied away from the distributed blockchains because of some of the concerns that I mentioned already. But I think the real opportunity of this industry is in the distributed permissionless blockchains, and not really in internally managed permission blockchains that can also serve a function. But the real opportunity is in creating automated trust through a distributed blockchain with no single points of failure, with the exact right balance between privacy and accountability, but no anonymity, to create finality, which is a huge issue in traditional finance. People think that when they've done a transfer or pulled their credit card that they paid and it's done, but it's not. This is a major issue for the entire financial industry. And of course also just in general making existing business more efficient in many different ways, which the distributed blockchain lends itself to. What I find really exciting is that there will be whole new businesses coming from this, just like there was at the internet. When we were sitting with the internet and we built our first trading platform, yes, that was a great improvement of efficiency, but we had no possibility of predicting what would happen 5, 10, 15, 20 years later. A complete change, a complete addition to the existing business world, social media being just one example. And I think we have the same thing here. We have really the opportunity to build businesses that cannot be comfortably built in our traditional systems. An early example here that has gained general interest has been NFTs, of course, which lends itself extremely well to blockchain. Various provenance projects are extremely suited, and of course, projects where data immutability is essential. All of this are great use cases, but I'm actually sure that the really great use cases are stuff that we haven't even thought about yet, because once we have sorted the ability to actually know that the other side of a contract gets executed, and under certain conditions, we also have knowledge and certainty who we're dealing with, then there's a lot of stuff that can't be done today that becomes a lot easier. In fact, somewhere close to 10% of world GDP today goes into various functions that aim to secure that we know who we're dealing with, that we know that there's a likelihood that the other party to an agreement actually does what we agree to do. You can talk about lawyers, you can talk about the financial system, public registers, etc. A huge part of the economy goes towards this. And here we're actually building something where we can interact with people in the secure knowledge that they will perform through an intelligently designed smart contract. This is a major evolution of world economy and could lead to multiples of the current economy that we know. But a new economy needs an absolutely solid foundation first. And there I think that at least in some period, the layer one, the blockchains, the foundational blockchains have been a little bit neglected, because you can build great applications, but if you don't have the foundation, if you don't have scalability, if you don't have absolute solidity, if you don't have finality to what you do, if you don't have all of these things that make sure that this very important piece of infrastructure can be used for also applications that gains critical mass and very vast volumes of transactions, well, then there's no point in building those applications. So for me, still, the biggest challenge is to create this foundation that everybody else can build on, and that's what we're doing with Concordium. Now, there's for sure a few other good projects out there that are looking at the same thing, but I think we have thought through very carefully what is it that's required to do this combination between the true DNA and the real world usage, the mainstream adoption. And I think this is absolutely dependent on some of the stuff that we build in, not least ID at the protocol layer, which I think we still are among the few that have. And at the same time, of course, once we have that, our focus is more on building a highly targeted and qualified community of developers as our first priority, to ensure that people that wants to build on this foundation, that wants to build a really scaling applications that will have hundreds of thousands, millions, potentially even billions of users, that they have a solid foundation. And that's what we're trying to build. And really today, that journey towards a whole new economy begins for us with the launch of the Concordium Mainnet. This is the first time that you can actually build on Concordium. We have a long roadmap like everybody else, and the technology will be improving for years to come. But we're now in a position where you can actually start to build on Concordium, and we're very excited about that here at Concordium. Our growing ecosystem is excited. The partners we already have are very excited to get started, and our early use case organizations and companies are excited about this. So this is really the start for Concordium, and in many ways also the start of a whole new way of looking at business together with some other good people out there. I think there is an enormous opportunity here. I was very fortunate to be part of the similar kind of opportunity that the internet created, but I truly think that this is another opportunity in the same sort of level of importance. So I think you should spend some time understanding this. You should join us, and we look very much forward to the ride, hopefully together with you.
Thank you, Lars, for this deep dive on the journey that has led us to release today's Concordium's mainnet and MVP. It's amazing to see how this vision is now a reality, and Concordium as a Tier 1 blockchain with an ID layer at the protocol level is from today one of the sole public and permissionless blockchain to serve the business world. Now let's move to Lona to learn more insights on this journey to business adoption and usage.
Thank you, Claire. Concordium's blockchain will be live today. Concordium's highly anticipated release follows 3 years of scientific research and development and testing. Concordium Foundation will launch the initial version of the Concordium blockchain and its MPV today on June the 9th. We call it the Alpha Centauri release. The mainnet launches comes after years of 4 successful iterations on the Concordium testnet. And the event will include the start of the Concordium blockchain and the release of the documentation. Initial phase starts today. The initial phase covers code logic, security, and operational deployment. And the token distribution and the first listing event will be a little later this summer. The first lockup releases of the GTU will happen as per our release schedule. Concordium Genesis block was created on June the 1st, and the Concordium blockchain was successfully scheduled to start this morning at 8 o'clock. We are now already in the initial phase, and after launch, the Concordium will retain control of the network, doing the initial phase to secure and stabilize it, and conduct further performance testing. During this initial stage, the Concordium Foundation will run 10 nodes that will stress test the network in real conditions, and during this phase, no external nodes will be running. The rewards that will be produced by the Concordium Foundation will be equally distributed during the distribution event between all GTU pre-sale buyers. And the GTU buyers will be notified about some important actions during this initial phase. The period will also allow Concordium to execute critical logic, securities audits, and operational deployment to calibrate the final aspects of the network. Jørgen, our CTO, will talk more about our tokenomics. I just want to lift one feature which I find of common interest and importance for the users, which is our low and sustainable transaction fee. And Benny, our CMO, will talk more about our product. We'll soon launch our community endowment program, and we're eager to interact with developers and users. And Torben, our CTO, will talk about our technical roadmap. It's essential that we soon offer sharding, interoperability, and even consensus and finalization as a service for private shards. This will enable users to combine various business models needs with the same technology. And we will also offer our blockchain to a white label service, making it possible for platforms, integrators, and consultants to offer the Concordium blockchain for their customers. But behind all this tech, there are people. The Concordium team have implemented our founder's vision. The white paper gives a very good description of the science and the architecture behind the blockchain. You'll find this white paper on our website, together with more than 40 of the peer-reviewed science papers written by high esteemed professors and PhDs from Concordium Research Center at Aarhus University, Denmark, ETH in Switzerland, ITU of Copenhagen, and the Indian Institute of Science, just to mention some who are behind the white papers. Our own science team have produced blue papers, which is then bridging the science and our developers' coding, ensuring the high quality of our code. And the code is security reviewed by Kodelsky. The report is publicly available, and we have presented this in a Medium post. An important part of how we work in Concordium is our holistic approach. It's often the question you don't know you should have asked, which are the most important questions to ask. A team with diversity and broad experience ensures a holistic approach, and we have not worked in silos. Our teams come from science, developer, blockchain, crypto communities. We have disruptors who were already disrupting, amongst others, the banking and tele industry, even before disrupting became mainstream. And our team have a vast business experience and experience from the financial sector. We have taken the combined experiences all the way into the product, and we will continue to work this way, adding even greater interaction with the community and users. Compliance, governance, and health of the organization is very important to us. We are global. We want to be an attractive employer. We are providing healthy working environments and also taking the latest science into the working environment. One example is that we have granted all the team members 1 hour per day where they can enjoy daylight and exercise. This has boosted health and productivity. I see many interesting new possibilities for business to use our blockchain in providing new business models to their customers, tokenization of assets, allow asset sharing, create escrow functions, supply logistic models, and decentralized finance, just to mention a few. We already have a lot of interest and activity from developers building at our blockchain. We will support a lot of new use cases and dApps. We have decided to celebrate our launch of the Concordium blockchain by supporting a new charity initiative, We2, against child abuse, with a dApp for their charity collection. This goes hand in hand with our DNA. We think the unacceptable is unacceptable. Using smart contracts for charities enable transparency for the donators and ensure donations are ending up where they should. And this is fighting against corruption. This is Concordium's gift to the children of the world. The dApp will soon be available for all charities to use. With our blockchain and our cryptocurrency, the GTU, we show that new software can support a better world. Safe, transparent, regulatable, and sustainable. Thank you so much, and back to you, Claire.
Thanks, Lona. It's not surprising to hear that many strategic and operational partnerships will be announced soon, with the ID layer at the protocol level, a flat transaction fee approach, a legion of tools to ease the onboarding, and a significant amount of builders are working on integrations. Concordium is the smart choice for businesses. Now let's hear from Michael Jackson, Concordium's advisor and former Chief Operations Officer of Skype.
Thank you, Claire. You know me, I started in the crypto sector way back in 2012. Someone who brought technology from research into the daily lives of millions of people. Even then I could see the potential. So when the internet was created, we know it was created without two things. It was created without the ability to identify users, and it was created without the ability to transact. And a lot of these things we struggled with since. You know that when you go buying stuff on the internet, it just is a terrible experience. But what's really missing on the internet as we interact from day to day is trust. We don't know who we're dealing with. We don't know who the counterparty is. We don't know what we're doing. And none of the blockchain products today have come close to giving us more trust in what's going on in the world here. they themselves don't really engender much trust. We hear about criminals using the system. We hear about systems that are broken. We hear about people running away with the money. We hear terrible stories. The existing products don't provide trust at all. You can't rely on them. How can you rely on a system where transaction costs are unknown, where it can cost $150 to do a transaction 1 minute and $2 to do a transaction the next? How can businesses rely on all that? A lot of the businesses in crypto revolve around trading tokens, buying and selling tokens, Ponzi schemes, things like that. Again, as a respectable business, how can you trust that? It really is abysmal. Because trust is key to the way we interact with each other. Trust is key to the way we trade. Trust is key to the way we use product. And of course, as you know, trust is key to dealing with other people. So I'd love to give you now a few examples of how trust is actually a cornerstone of Concordium. In transactions, we expect them to be private. We expect when we transact, even if it's in the supermarket, that the transaction is known just between you and the counterparty. You assume it's private. You assume it's effective. You assume it's fast. You assume when you give somebody money, they're actually going to get the money. Let's be honest, nothing else really, it doesn't really matter anything else, right? This isn't true on other networks. Smart contract transactions are visible on other networks. This can't be right. People can follow what you do. But on Concordium, we know this is wrong. We know it doesn't work for business. Transactions, smart contracts can be encrypted on Concordium. They're not visible to other people. They're private. They're between the parties. But isn't this bad? Isn't this bad, being invisible to others? It's bad. There are bad people on the network, no? Yeah, privacy is one thing. Anonymity is something else. We don't have anonymity on Concordium. Every user has an identity. Every user has gone through a process where we know what's behind them. They have a passport and what have you. It's quite unusual in crypto. It's against some of the ethoses in some of the other projects, but there we are. The authorities can come and find you if they need to, with the right permissions, of course, and all of that, just as they can anywhere else in society. Super unusual, but we think it's novel and we think it's what you need as a business. You need also to be able to trust the network. It's going to be reliable and it can scale. So how do we do that? How can you be sure that Concordium network can do that? Well, one of the reasons is the people behind the network, the people who developed the technology, from the code through to the actual implementation, and names who are behind the technology that even other people use. Names behind the technology that even the base chain, Satoshi, who developed Bitcoin, uses technology developed by some of the team members of Concordium. Cobra in Aarhus is used, the research laboratory is something we use all the time to give us the inspiration. And our development, as you hear from Torben, is by a professional development team in a professional environment. And then, of course, as a business, you need to be able to budget. You need to be able to provide for the future. As I said earlier, you need to know what your transaction fees. They need to be reliable. You need to budget. What's it going to cost to run this network? I don't understand why this has never happened on other networks, really, until I begin to think. The people developing most of the other networks have never run global corporate networks. They've never run anything that matters. They've never had systems running 24 hours a day, conducting millions of dollars of transactions every single minute. The team behind Concordium have this experience. We know what's needed for technology. We know what's needed. We have sharding. We have our own data centers. Sharding means you can implement a version of Concordium in your own environment, not our environment, not on the global internet, but in your own hosted environment, on your own cloud. We don't really like you to do that. We'd much prefer you were using Concordium on the global network. But it's up to you. You want to do it that way, that's fine. Because again, unusual for blockchains, the team behind Concordium have this experience and we know what you want. Massive, high volume, high reliability global systems are something we know about. It's experience you can rely on. So finally, let's get back to trust. You need to be able to trust the network that runs your business. We know that trust is important. The features we add to the network on top of everything everybody else is doing are there to develop trust, to give you the reliability that you need to trust your business to Concordium. Trust is the feature Concordium brings to blockchain. I hope you appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael. This mainnet launch also represents the release of Concordium's token GTU. Many of you participated in the private cells, testnets, and other incentivized programs and already got your hands in some GTU. Some of you might want to get some GTU later. So let's invite Jørn to the scene and hear more about Concordium Tokenomics and plans for its GTU.
Thank you very much, Claire. As you say, I'm going to talk about the tokenomics of the Concordium blockchain. We've designed the tokenomics to make it predictable and cheap for individual users and businesses to make transactions on the blockchain, while at the same time make it financially attractive for node runners to provide computer power. In that way, the tokenomic system contributes to the security and stability of the blockchain. The currency of the blockchain is the GTU, which is short for Global Transaction Unit. At the time of launch, there will be 10 billion GTUs in existence. That number will increase over time with newly minted GTUs. I will explain that in a second. The tokenomic system is all about managing the inflow and outflow of GTUs on the blockchain. Income is generated from two sources: the minting of new GTUs and the payment of transaction fees by users. The outflow primarily comprises rewards to node runners and a fee to Concordium Foundation. Now let us take a closer look at the inflow or income side. In the first years after launch, the income will primarily come from new minting, while transaction fees will contribute less. The long-term growth from new minting in the number of GTUs is set to 2% per year. In the first couple of years after launch, the growth rate will be at a higher level. We start out with a growth of 10%, which is a rate that allows us to pay attractive rewards right from the start to the node runners. As time goes by and all kinds of applications are implemented on the chain and the number of transactions goes up, a larger part of the income will come from transaction fees. And as that happens, the growth from new minting will decrease towards the long-term goal of 2% per year. The other main source of income is the transaction fees, which are paid in GTUs. Our blockchain will have low transaction fees, initially as low as 0.01 euro for a simple transaction, such as a normal transfer of GTUs. Over time, it should be even lower than that. That makes it a very cost-competitive blockchain for users. For more complex or larger transactions, the fees will be higher. Even though the fees are paid in GTU, which may go up or down in value, the transaction costs are designed to be stable in euro terms. So a transaction that costs 0.01 euro will continue to cost that, even if the price of the GTU goes up. In that way, users can predict and plan for the cost of blockchain transactions. We are able to do this because we have developed a system that continuously imports the market price of the GTU and then adjust the number of GTUs you're charged for a transaction so that the price in euro stays the same. Now let's look at the outflow or reward side. Each new block is created in a process we call baking. The people who provide the computers doing baking are the bakers. The bakers are paid for their work. They receive 85% of all new minted GTUs and they receive 90% of the transaction fees. On the Concordium blockchain, each new block is finalized fast, so within a few seconds after it's created, it cannot be deleted or changed. This is a unique and important feature of our blockchain. The finalization is a separate process that is performed by those node runners that hold at least 0.1% of all GTUs each. This group, called finalizers, receives an additional 5% of the newly minted GTUs on top of their baking rewards. So in total, bakers and finalizers receive 90% of all the income in the system. The last 10% is paid to Concordium Foundation in order to enable the foundation to continue the technical development and the promotion of the blockchain in the long run. Not only node runners can earn rewards. Options for other GTU holders to earn rewards will be introduced after launch. Several independent GTU custody providers are working on solutions that will allow GTU holders to place the GTUs with the custody provider, who in turn bakes and finalize on behalf of the GTU holder, and then share the rewards. A so-called delegation program is being developed by Concordium. It will enable GTU holders who don't want to run node themselves to delegate their GTU to a global staking pool which participates as a baker and finalizer in the rewards. The delegators will then share in the rewards of the staking pool. The responsibility for the governance of the tokenomics is placed with the governance committee. Initially, the committee is appointed by the board of Concordium Foundation, and it will include community members. In the coming years, GTU holders and members of the community and other stakeholders will gradually take charge of the committee as part of the blockchain's development towards decentralization. The performance of the blockchain will be monitored closely by the committee. The tokenomic parameters, including the transaction fees, the rate of new minting, the split of rewards, etc., may be adjusted by the committee in order to maintain a healthy economy and a secure network. Thank you very much for the time. Back to you, Claire.
Thank you, Jan. Testers, buyers, and community members all over the world are excited to hear about Concordium's strong tokenomics. Issuing Concordium's payment token after 3 years of intensive work must be an overwhelming and exciting feeling. Now, for all those current and future GTU holders watching us, let's take a look at how you can create a self-sovereign identity object in Concordium in order to transact in a fully compliant way on the Concordium ecosystem. Benny would like to show us how. But first, how are you feeling on this big and exciting day for Concordium?
Thanks, Claire, for this. And I must admit to begin here that after almost 2 years of non-stop development work, I feel a little bit emotional. Nah, I'm just joking. I feel super excited, and mainly for our community and our developers. The real thing is here, and it's time to see what we can do at the moment using Concordium. So if you allow me, Claire, I would love to demo a couple of stuff, i.e. sending some GTU using our wallets, both public and private, creating a self-sovereign identity, and moving some funds from a private wallet to an encrypted one on the Concordium wallet. Plus, I think it's time to show our desktop wallet too. Let's do it. This is the Concordium desktop wallet. With this wallet, you can transact in a full private, secured, and legal way. As usual with Concordium, you need to link an identity to your account, and this is where you can do it. You click on account, you create an identity, you get KYC'd, and you can begin to transact. But with this product, you can also manage your address book of addresses. You can export and import any single identity object and even your address book. And you can manage your multi-sig transactions using this menu. Obviously, you can set up quite a lot of things also using our node settings and our multi-signature settings. This is the Concordium desktop wallet, and it's going to be released also during our mainnet. This is the Concordium wallet. It's the mobile wallet, the iOS one, but we have the same kind of version on Android. With this wallet, you can transact publicly, privately, in a full compliant way. The first thing you need to do is to create an identity, and this is exactly what we are going to do together. You click on identities, you click on plus here. And here we go. The first thing we need to do, it's definitely to name what we are doing. The account that will be attached to this identity will be named test. We are going to name, for this matter of fact, the identity object that we are creating in the same way. And the last but not least, we are going to be KYC'd and verified by one of our partners. For the matter of fact here, Notabene. You click here, your Face ID'd, and here we go. You can begin to transact, to stake, and to resend funds. And this is in a full compliant and secure way. Let's begin.
Thank you, Benny. We invite all of you watching to go check Concordium.com and start creating your self-sovereign identity object and get ready to start transacting. The Android and the iOS mobile apps will be released in the next couple of weeks. Sign up to our newsletter at concordium.com to be notified. Concordium is not serving the past, but enabling the future. Let's discover what the next releases of the software looks like with Concordium CTO Torben Pryds Petersen.
Thank you, Claire. It is a very exciting day for all of us today. We are launching our new blockchain, which contains many new and interesting features. I'll not go through all of them now, but one of the most important ones is the identity, which is built into the protocol level. So it works in the following way. In order to have an account, you first need to go through an identification. So the account builds on top of this identification. But the account does not reveal your ID. Furthermore, you can create different accounts based on the same ID, and these different accounts cannot be linked to each other. Now, it's important that this does not mean that Concordium has to grant access to use the blockchain. It is not a permission blockchain, and Concordium does not control who can be identified. The identification will be done by third-party identity providers. Another important thing is that you can consider our blockchain as one application on top of this identity layer, but we hope to see other applications in the future. Our identity layer utilizes a concept called zero-knowledge proofs, and we'll provide libraries that enable integration of these zero-knowledge proofs, both on the side of the person who's going to be identified, but also on the side of the application relying on this identification. Another important feature of our blockchain is the two-level consensus protocol. New blocks are created and appended to the blockchain on the longest chain, as is usual in blockchains. However, on top of this, we have a finalization protocol in which some of the bakers will approve a block and added a signature on it to prove that this block can never be rolled back. Initially, we will finalize every block, and that gives a very high turnaround time from the time you submit a transaction until it is in a block that cannot be rolled back. Another important aspect of our blockchain is that we have tried to focus much on the applications running on the blockchain. So it has been important for us to build a blockchain which is, of course, it has to be secure, but also reliable. We present it in a way with a predictable low cost so that you know what it costs to use it both now and many years from now. In addition, we have added our smart contracts, which utilizes Rust, which is a very powerful programming language, and that will enable you to create a lot of extensions in the form of smart contracts. So what are we doing next? We are planning major updates basically yearly. The first one will be serious, which will be in Q1 next year. After that, we expect to have major updates roughly yearly. So the focus for the first update will be to consolidate what we have already, but also to extend it with new features. And here consolidation means many things. One is that we want to improve the robustness, the performance of our blockchain, and this goes for all the layers in our blockchain. Another thing is that we want to improve the usability. We want to make it, for example, to make it easier to write and test smart contracts. One way to do this is to make templates for smart contracts that can be used as a basis for new smart contracts. An example of this is tokenization, which Benny will talk more about later. Over time, we hope that these templates will develop into standards that can be used broadly across different applications. An important part is also to add and improve tools. We have good tools for writing smart contracts. Our tests have shown that it's easy to get started with writing smart contracts, but we also want to add more, and we also want to improve the tools that we already have. We also want to add other tools, for example, for inspecting the blockchain, for adding information on the blockchain. Concordium will work on some of these features, but we also hope and we invite that we can get contributions from other parties to make our blockchain even better. So the other focus area of the next release is to extend what we already have with new features. One area is the wallets. As part of this release, Concordium is providing both a mobile wallet and a desktop wallet. The desktop wallet protects the keys with a Ledger Nano S to give a hardware protection of the private key. However, Concordium does not see itself as a wallet supplier on the long term, and we would like to see other wallets using our blockchain. Another new feature that we're going to add is a delegation. We have promised earlier to build a built-in delegation mechanism in which GTU holders can delegate to a pool, which is one pool for the entire blockchain. This allows people who don't want to run a node to actually support our node runners by delegating to the node runners. It is possible to imagine other forms of delegation on top of the blockchain. We refer to this as layer 2 delegation, so it's not built in, and this is also something that we are going to look at. Then, as I mentioned, we have the finalization as an central part of our consensus protocol. And this concept will be very useful when we're going to consider sharding and interoperability, because we have a mechanism which allows, so to speak, the blockchain to stamp a block as final. So we expect to have the first versions of sharding to experiment with on our open testnet within the next year. We also expect on the long run to have sharding mechanisms which use other consensus protocols than the one we use today, so that we can optimize the consensus protocol for the specific needs of the shards. So to summarize, we have a long list of new features that we would like to add. However, we want to do it in a speed that we ensure that the blockchain remains reliable, robust, and that you can trust using it. I invite you all to follow our work by taking a look at our code, which is in GitHub. And we also invite for contributions and suggestions for improvements of our blockchain.
Thanks, Torben. Now let's return to Benny to hear more about the roadmap ahead.
Alpha Century is our first milestone, with great stuff, but the next release is around the corner and will include quite a lot of super cool stuff for all our users. Indeed, Sirius, this is the name of the next release, will open the doors to compliant DeFi by the means of our token standardization and templates. It means simply that you could create tokens on top of Concordium using templates the same way you can do it on Ethereum, but much more secure and scalable. In another word, we will deploy an ERC20 and an ERC721 equivalent with a little but major difference. The same way the GTU is ID-centric, all new tokens will be following the same path. And this allows us to release at the same time our swapping mechanism that will enable users to swap in a fully compliant way between all tokens issued on Concordium, but also with all wrapped tokens that will get an expression on the network. Not bad, huh? But wait, that's not all. We will release in Sirius some other top-notch features like Oracle node structure, our private shard POC, our finality as a service functional feature, and many more. And when this is going to happen? Q1 2022. And as you know, Concordium delivers, and it delivers on time. That being said, a legion of events are going to happen between Alpha Century and Sirius, including some important partnerships, i.e. the Stop Child Abuse We2 initiative that will use Concordium to build a donation tracking app. We will also meet all of you during our various education cycles, both on the development and integration part of the network. Our first products with Geely will be announced too, and we are going to announce our first grants receivers, and of course, a lot of other stuff when it comes to product adoption and usage. One thing I can promise you guys, it's gonna be legendary.
Concordium's journey is just starting and its destination is impressive. Soon we will announce workshops where you will learn how to be part of the Concordium network, creating nodes, baking, running smart contracts, and more. Sign up to Concordium's newsletter at the bottom of the page, concordium.com, and don't miss out on any of the upcoming news. Join us in our community at t.me/Concordium_official and follow us on Twitter at ConcordiumNet. Thank you to Lars, Lona, Jan, Torben, Benny and Michael, and especially thank you to you for joining us today on this special day for Concordium and its community. Big things are coming and we hope that you can be part of this journey. Hope to see you soon. And now, we are proud to announce that the Concordium blockchain is live. From now on, leave the past behind and join the future.